we really need to be doing here is establishing, and I think even the CEO started this language to become this coaching culture. And we want them to understand that. And the CEO, the organization, the top leadership didn't really have a firm idea of what that even meant themselves. So we put them through what we called the coaching clinic so that they had a sense of what it meant, not just to hire coaches. We know we can do that in organizations. We can hire coaches. We know that right now, most organizations are doing that. Any organization that has over 2,000 people, 95% of them are having coaches come in. But what we wanted to do was different, was to help the leaders to become coaches themselves.
Welcome to Leadership, the Secret Sauce, the podcast where we talk to extraordinary coaches and leaders to dive into the realms of leadership and coaching. We're your hosts, Dave Lipsky and Matt Dausend. So let's jump in with another guest and find out their answer to the question, what is your secret sauce? All right, welcome. Before we begin, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Character Matters Coaching and Consulting, where they believe that your character is the compass guiding you through life's journey. Whether you're facing personal or professional challenges, they are dedicated to helping you discover and strengthen the core values that define who you are. Let me introduce Amy and Linda to you. We're so glad to have you here. This is a new thing for us as a podcast. And we are going to be talking about coaching culture, which is near and dear to Dave's and my heart. And so we're really glad you're both here with us today. But Dave, maybe you can give us a little bit of a bird's eye view of what we're going to talk about.
Sure. Thank you so much, Matt. And welcome, Linda and Amy. We're excited to have you on. We're going to explore a little more around what a coaching culture is and some of the challenges of the journey of trying to achieve it and some of the things that we have learned along the way. We like to start out. Matt and I created the podcast because we like to hang out with people that love coaching. Right. And it was a great opportunity to invite Linda and Amy in. So thank you for being here. We start out with, thank you. We start out with the energy question, which is how we start coaching and classes and group coaching or team coaching. So on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, what energy level are you at today? And Linda or Amy, you can go whatever order you choose.
I think I'm a pretty high energy level. It's a Friday. We're getting ready for the weekend, and we're going to be getting out there and doing stuff. So I'm feeling it. I'd say a 9 or a 10.
Oh, gosh, that's exciting. So
there's an anchor.
I know, that's wonderful. So I'm probably at a 5 or a 6 today because I was at a retreat the last 3 days where it was very exciting, but my flight was delayed. So I walked through my door at 12:15 a.m. this morning and then got up at 6:30 to come into work. So I have energy in my heart.
It's okay.
The body is not keeping up.
Yeah. And Amy, I absolutely have experienced the same, and no judgment. So 5 or 6 or a 9 is all good. And that's one of the beauties of like having interaction with others is we can lift each other up and help each other along the way. So
and actually,
Matt, what's yours?
I don't think actually we've ever had a 5 or a 6 and a 9 or a 10 at the same time. So that may be a first.
Should we go with the average?
I'm going to just go 7.5 myself.
There you go.
7.5.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with an 8 because I did like the day felt a little like oatmeal, and then I knew I had this podcast, so the oatmeal lifted, and the sun is shining outside, even though it is very cold. So I'm very, very excited to be here. Can I ask where, speaking of where I am, I'm upstate New York, like an hour north of the city. Matt is in Houston. We switched weather patterns this week. Where are you both calling in from?
I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I am in Phoenix, Arizona. It's about 65 degrees today and sunny.
So we go to Linda's for the next one.
Yeah.
I'll say aye.
Yeah.
As long as it's not in the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. First, first question. Often we ask, like, how do you introduce yourself when people ask what you do? And if you want to add the walk-on song, we can add that afterwards. But what when people say, like, you were on the plane last night, Amy, it was a little tiring, but somebody turned you and said, "So, Amy, what do you do?"
I say I make people's lives better, one road and bridge at a time.
Hmm.
I like that.
Perfect.
All
I mean, I do
right.
tell them that I am a leadership development consultant, but I do that so that we can create great leaders in this world, to create a space where they know how to grow and learn and become the best possible for the people and the organizations they work with.
I like that. Roads, bridges, and the spaces you travel on. Right. So it blends very, very nicely.
Yeah. How did the two of you connect? Like, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself as you're sort of describing how your worlds came together.
Oh gosh. Oh wow. I 2 decades ago.
Decades.
It's probably two
Wow.
decades ago, through the Society for Human Resource Management. We were both chapter leaders. And so I actually remember seeing Linda for the first time in a video, because the chapter she was involved in, Skira, submitted an application for Chapter of the Year, where they took the song 9 to 5 and started singing about how they were working on HR. And I'm pretty gosh darn sure that was you singing the lead.
Wow.
In,
What?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is my first official memory. Now, I don't know
didn't
that
know
we met
that.
that year, but that was.
We did. We won it. Yeah, we won it.
I know you won, but I'm not sure that you and I met. I know
Just in
Skira
case.
won.
Yeah.
Yes, no, they won. I'm not sure that we actually met that year, but because that was, I don't know, 07, 05. I mean, that was probably, that literally was like 20 some years ago. So.
Wow.
Yeah. She's right. And then we ended up, I mean, our paths crossed over the years. We
Continuing,
ended
yes.
up being on the state council for Indiana and
Right.
worked as leaders. And these are all volunteer leader roles. And both of us have been just passionate about serving the HR community in our states that we've been in, and just in general, because I think it goes back to what we said about why we do what we do, is we just love to develop people and grow them. And through the volunteer work that we do at SHRM, we get the opportunity to do that, to touch so many people. It's been a great.
Yeah. So we do that in both our paid gig and our unpaid gig. And so then in my current company, I'm celebrating my 10-year anniversary this year, and I joined the organization, and the individual who hired me said, "Oh, I guess I wish you were available to start a week earlier. We were just finishing our first year of a leadership development program, and we worked with Flashpoint Leadership." And I said, "Oh, who are you working with?" Because I knew a lot of people. And I actually may have even asked. I said, "Are you working with Linda?" And he's like, "You know Linda?" "Oh, yes. Absolutely, I know Linda." And so I was excited to understand that what I thought would be one chance to work together professionally turned into a decade-long relationship here where I work.
I like it. So if the song was 9 to 5 when you first started interacting, how has it evolved to now? What's the new song?
Oh, easy. I mean, it's a Broadway show tune for sure, because we make a regular habit of doing karaoke and doing Broadway show tunes together. And yeah, but I don't know if you have one, Amy, particular.
Oh, like a Broadway. I thought you were asking what the actual tune was. It'd probably be 24/7 now, but I'd have to really think about what the show tune is.
It could be any
It's something.
myriad of them.
It's something Sondheim for sure. So HR isn't easy, or work isn't easy. I mean, I suppose if you know Sunday in the Park with George, of course, right?
Yes.
Bernadette Peters
Art.
and Mandy Patinkin. Yes.
Wow, Matt,
Yes, the gold
impressive.
There you go.
standard. You're rolling
Yeah.
it in, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
if art isn't easy, work isn't easy. So I'd probably have to go with that
That's a
one.
good one.
Nice.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of told us a little bit about what you're mutually passionate about, but let me just ask, like, I'm going to just go to the coaching question. Maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of like a summary of, okay, 10 years ago, you started working together. Did you know then, or did you think about things like of what you wanted coaching to look like in the organization? Or was that just like you were doing, like Linda was doing something with Flashpoint, and then it rolled into this more strategic idea around what coaching could look like in the organization? I know I've just added a whole bunch of other things with that question, but
Do you want me to start on that one?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think from my perspective, I was new to the organization and I was joining it with the idea, the understanding that the individual who I reported to was going to be retiring. So he was looking for a successor, and the president of the organization was looking for HR to take on a more strategic function in general and to move talent in a strategic way. So we work in heavy highway construction, so not necessarily an industry replete with notoriety around leadership development. And, I think it was kind of more of a, who's the next person up on the crew to take over. And if someone was really good as an individual contributor, oh, they can run a job, right? That's just kind of how it worked. And so, I was still learning about the organization. So I think the idea about what a coaching culture would look like, we didn't use those words, but what we were looking for was a place where individuals and managers would be empowered to become their best, and where they would communicate very openly and give each other feedback on how to get better. So it was at the time that I started, it was around continuous improvement and talent development. And so coaching, of course, rolls right into that, right? That's the mechanism and method through which you can create that type of open environment. But I don't know that the word coaching was there immediately.
yeah.
What would you say, Linda?
Yeah, it was definitely an evolution. And we did start out directly with, as a lot of organizations do, saying we just need some leadership development. And so we identified what their values were, their vision was, and we wanted to connect to what the organization needed there. And we started out with some of your traditional, what was called the milestone way of leadership development. And we identified some behaviors that were expected and administered a 360 and et cetera. But what was happening as we were going through, it became evident that the CEO, the CEO of the organization, was very visionary in terms of where he wanted to see this culture. And although, like Amy said, they didn't necessarily use the word coaching culture, it became evident to us at Flashpoint that that's where we needed to get, where leaders were not just doing the, having my consultation on a conflict, or I'm having my performance management conversation, but it was how they were doing it. And that's where it came to this place where, as we were working with them, we said, what? So we inserted for the leadership team, we did a clinic with them about what it meant for them to be coaches. And this was novel for them, right? Because again, they can bring people in to be coaches and coach them and coach others and whatever. But what if we had everybody understand what it meant to be a coach themselves, and how would that shift our organization? So imagine it. You're still doing what you need to do, like Amy described, all the work that they do, but you're doing it with a coach approach instead. And so with that in mind, we developed the coaching clinic for their leaders. And it was about 40 the first year. Amy, you might remember all the numbers, like 50 the next year. It's more the next year.
I think we've had close to 100.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Participate.
Yeah. So we took them through what it meant to be a coach and to learn those skills themselves.
Right.
And then what the really beautiful part of it is, what I think we'd really like to share is how it evolved. And maybe, Amy, you can talk a little bit about the decision to create internal coaches and how we develop them, et cetera, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And it was, we were excited the way a lot of people really just grasped onto this coach approach and wanted to learn more and know more, and found a great deal of value in approaching people that way. I mean, their peers, people that they might lead. And so, our organization is fairly flat, but when they're working on jobs, there are places where they're leading, right, working with customers or subcontractors, not necessarily having direct reports, but performing leadership activities on a day-to-day basis. And they found real ways that they could use the coach approach. And when people started asking for more, we looked for a way that we could deliver that to them. And so we created an opportunity for those who were interested to, spend a year working with Linda and some of their team to become a certified internal coach. And so they would spend an entire year going through it, taking a deep dive into the curriculum, practicing on one another. We have 17 internal coaches, several of whom are now vice presidents, right? Have, evolved in leadership into the organization. And, and we were just so excited to understand and to be able to create this, sort of army of coaches who are out there, role modeling the coach approach and working with others who have not been coached, right? So they can function as a coach to people in the organization. But more importantly than that, they're role modeling that behavior regularly. And then that type of relationship building and that coach approach where you ask and don't tell inspires others to model that, and it differentiates us as far as how we approach the work, because again, it's definitely something that the next, like, Gen Z, Gen A, that's really what they're looking for. They don't want to be told what to do. And I think this is an industry that historically was more just about telling, pointing and telling, and that's not going to evolve us for the future. And so it really started as a very grassroots, a grassroots effort that has blossomed, and that's what really makes it successful, because it wasn't our leadership going out and saying we want to build an army of coaches, go out and do this. It was people really internalizing the work and being very connected to it, and then asking to become more.
Yeah. What would you see as different from where you started and did clinic and did the internal coaches to yeah you can there's a camera button on the bottom. So what's different, what changed in terms of that journey from where you started to where you're now? What would we see different in the organization?
I think you will see a much different conversations around the importance of relationship building. In fact, I just left a much more collaborative approach to the work. So I just left a workshop with individuals in our general construction group. And so we had about 80 people we have 9 offices around the state. So we had 80 people from all of our 9 offices, executives, all the way to like an hourly 4-person on a crew. I say that instead of 4 men, right? 4-person, 4-person on a crew, gathered together to talk about what is important for our business and how we can make positive change in some of our key pillars. Some was around safety, but our last conversation of the day was around mental health. And so the table conversation was around, safety is our number one business priority. And we talk about physical safety and how that's important. And in the last several years, we've been talking about psychological safety as a key element in that safety as well. Quality is another business pillar. We extend that to include quality of the work environment. In what is it like to bring someone into the crew, new people into the crew, and because it happens very quickly. So how do you do that? We talk about individuals joining our industry that have no experience, and what skills do we need people to have in order to, help them succeed and become productive quickly. And I mean, just the fact that we had people sitting for 30 minutes talking about how to recognize that not everyone has their best day every day, and that mental health is just as important as physical health, and what we can do better as we're approaching our work, I think is huge, because I don't know that would have happened. And so much of the response that we got around that question was, make sure, get to know all the people on your crew, develop a relationship, ask how they're doing, ask what they need, ask where they need to get to and how you can help. And that's a coach approach, right? At its very core, it's simply asking someone what they need, where they want to go, and then how you can help them get there. And so half the people in the room probably wouldn't recognize that's a coach approach, but they're doing it.
It's becoming part of the culture. It's become part of the culture that to do, how to ask questions, that you're listening, that your leaders are focused on helping others to come up with the answers themselves. And that's real success, right? That is real success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we see in the work that we do at Flashpoint, we also are those internal coaches, right? We come into the organization, or we help them to build their program of internal coaches that are dedicated to coaching internally. And that, of course, is a great, if organizations have the luxury to have their own internal coaches, that's awesome, right? But what we're finding is that, to Amy's point, there's a lot of credibility when you see the leaders modeling these behaviors and doing it on a consistent basis. So it truly is creating this culture of coaching that we all desire to have in our organizations, because once we're there, we're creating this space where, and we actually do an activity in the coaching clinic where we say, what happens to an organization that adopts a coaching culture versus one that has the, kind of the traditional, we don't always ask, we're telling. And we do know that, they talk about, well, we're going to have more time to be able to focus on the true priorities. We're going to have better relationships. We're going to have better mental health is one of them. So the buy-in that we get from having these internal coaches and having them demonstrate it is that it's seen in the organization, and it's seen to be creating a difference, and people are engaged. And I have to tell you a stat, and Amy, you might have an update on it, but when we worked through this program for a number of years, the turnover of leaders, virtually non-existent. So we had they were getting promoted into other roles and so forth, but they weren't leaving the organization. And it's because I felt they were being listened to, they were being asked questions about how they can contribute. And it really has become, one of the questions that you asked is, what does that look like? What does it look like now? And from where we were when we first started, before Amy was even there, and we were having people, the traditional highway construction kind of work, and the sense of how leaders are supposed to act, and to what it is today, has been very dramatic. And and it has become that place where people know to ask questions and to create these spaces where people can share what's on their mind and come up with their own solutions and come up with their own success.
Yeah, absolutely. Just and I don't have an actual stat on turnover. It's so low that I don't even track it, because it's just not something that I have to focus on. We focus more on building the bench and just extending readiness. so that we have individuals, ready for the roles that are going to be coming open. The majority of our turnover is due to retirement and attrition, not due to regrettable turnover. So, I think another thing that is different now is certainly just around feedback, and that it's just normalized to just give feedback on a regular basis to one another, whether it's constructive, positive, or constructive, negative. We still struggle with the constructive negative, like most organizations do. That's a challenge for people, but it is definitely happening more. And I think something else that's different is that while our army of internal coaches is tremendous, there are situations where sometimes you want to have an external coach, right? And so people are asking for that. If we have managers or senior directors, or folks who just feel like they've got a hurdle they need to crest, they will openly come and talk to me about that and ask if they can have coaching engagement with a professional outside the organization for 6, 9, 12 months. And the fact that people are seeing that for themselves, so just the level of self-awareness that has risen within our leaders, and the level of emotional intelligence and emotional regulation and recognition that the work environment of even 5 years ago is not going to be the work environment of 5 years from now. And so there's a recognition that we all have to keep evolving, and people are putting emphasis into that.
One of the things you kind of mentioned is like, okay, so they have 17 internal coaches. When I spoke with another company, they said, well, at some point in time, some of these internal coaches are like, hey, I love this. I want to go hang my shingles somewhere else.
Oh.
Has that happened, or has it been rare, or?
Well, so, one of our internal coaches did take a role in so our company is a business entity in a larger company, or has many operating companies within its umbrella. So one of our coaches did move to a managerial role in another organization. We have not had anyone go out and hang up their own shingle, because they're not, these are project managers, these are safety leaders, these are, one is on my team now, but she was in the safety department at the time. These are superintendents. So their day jobs are primarily operations driven.
Yeah.
They're not in the business to be a coach in the outside world.
I think what's interesting is you have to use, like, coming from a manufacturing world myself, like, you have to use language that a construction company can understand. And you can't use maybe sometimes language that we use in the coaching world. What do you want to manifest? Like, the construction people would look at you and be like, what in the world am I manifesting? Otherwise, I need to get
True.
that thing over there. And that's
right. That's funny. I've never heard anyone ask anyone what they wanted to manifest. I think it's more about, where are you now? Where are you trying to get to? Okay, how do you think you need to get there? And let's talk about that. Linda, have you ever heard? I've never heard the word manifest in our org.
Other than
maybe,
talking
Linda,
about
you can check your
manifest.
camera. Check your camera, Linda, if you don't mind. Just as you think about.
Off. Oh, I am.
And
okay.
and while she's sort of fixing that, see if she can get it, but maybe she can't. But is this idea in the coaching world? We have our own little lingo, and so sometimes. And then all of a sudden we have to relate to particularly construction, manufacturing, and you have to just go, oh, what am I saying? Because they're not understanding it. Yeah. There you go, Linda.
Oh, you're back.
Tell us what you think. Yeah.
I don't know what happened. That was random.
Yeah. I think that, Amy's right that and here's the beauty of these coaches, right? Is again, we've had very, very low turnover. They're not looking to become the next coach, but they're modeling what is expected. They are, and I love, Amy, that you use the exact model that we taught them, which was, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And let's talk about how you're going to get there. We're going to talk about barriers in the middle. We have a specific model that they use, and it's easy for them to just remember that. Now, is it easy to always do it? No. I mean, because we know, we are the same kind of people, right? Sometimes we just want to tell them, right, what to do. And so that is a challenge for us. It's a challenge for them, but they know it when they don't do it. So, and going back to the feedback conversation, right? Feedback's so important, but it is not coaching, right? So we have to continually keep that in mind and help our coaches to do that, and us as coaches to do that. There is a time when, yeah, it does make sense to what we call message somebody that's not getting it. But we know that we're going to unlock the potential of others when we allow them to come up with the answers.
Neat.
What have you learned about yourselves on this journey?
So I think I have learned that if I'm pushed up on a deadline, I will often step into telling a little bit sooner than I may if I'm not pushed up against a deadline. So those are spaces where I have to remind myself, coach thyself type situation. I have also learned truly what a catalyst a coach approach can be. Just across an entire organization, it's meaningful, and it's not just something, that type of approach is not just something that is reserved for executives or senior directors. There are very specific purposes to engage in certain types of coaching. So I guess I would say I think I've also learned that coaching can be targeted. Right? There are situations where group coaching can be very effective. There are situations where you do maybe have someone who's not performing the way you need them to. So there's a very specific purpose to engage with a coach. And then there is what Linda talked about, which is the unlocking potential of everyone around you by role modeling what seems to be some fairly basic behaviors.
Yeah.
How about you,
Yeah.
Linda?
And I would say, this was unique. I'll just say that what Milestone did was unique, is invest in people in the organization to the point where they were learning how to be internal coaches. A lot of organizations are at that place where it makes sense to have internal coaches, and they have, in fact, I was just working with another organization recently that wanted to have some support for their internal coaches. And I think that that when we see that there's a consistency in the message and the approach, that we're going to get the best results and ongoing results. This has been how many years, Amy, that you've had these coaches?
Oh gosh.
Years.
Yeah, 7, 8, years.
Yeah. And so what I've learned from that is that consistency is going to make all the difference. It's a commitment, and that when we embrace it at the leadership at the senior leadership level and understand the value that it can provide and sees that, and I know that that senior leadership at Milestone uses the.
I was
There you
just,
go.
I don't know how much
Got
you
it.
heard, but I was just saying that if senior leadership embraces it, like Milestone senior leadership, they use the coach approach themselves. It's a whole culture of coaching that is creating this place where people can be their best selves. And that really ultimately is what we want for our companies and our organizations.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, so that is really important. I think what you just said is going all the way back to the beginning with our very first cohort of internal coaches, is that it was supported and championed by senior leadership, but it was led by that first group of coaches, right? So it allowed them the opportunity to lead, and sort of, so it's that grassroots driven with the senior leadership support, like those two things together really made it so much more successful. Because again, we didn't have anyone mandating to these individuals, oh, you must do this as a coach, or this is what it needs to look like, or any of those things. They were, the executives were, perfect sponsors and champions, right? Because they were listening and supporting.
Dave, what's your takeaway before I jump in? I get so excited about talking about this, but go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, I appreciate you both sharing your stories and the journey. And my reflection is a few things. One is like the lifeblood of a coaching culture is around that exchange of feedback, right? And which increases self-awareness and I think really can have a deep impact at all levels in an organization. And the other thing also that I reflect upon is sometimes we make things too complicated for organizations to digest them. So I really like the conciseness of the model of coaching that you talk about, and I think that's something that I want to continue to explore of how we communicate what's important, how we teach it, and the impact the organization's ability to digest it. So thank you both for sharing that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, I think my reflection is this idea that there's a top and a tail to really getting to a coaching culture. Like you need them both. And it's best if your groundswell, your sort of grassroots coaches, that you've got coaches that are energized. And now you have actually senior leaders that are those same coaches. That's actually, I mean, the evolution, the long-term benefit of that, you had mentioned, I heard engagement, I heard retention, I heard wanting to be there. And it's really unique. All right. And you, Linda, you described it. Oh, this is really kind of unique. You're right. It is unique. And I imagine if we got one of those people that were trained as a coach on the podcast, they'd probably say that too. Like, I wouldn't want to go. This is unique. I don't know if I could find this someplace else. You're creating career best moments in the construction industry. That's unique, right?
And I think it is. The secret sauce that we have is that it's a mixture of our sauces, right? So they've got the idea and the vision for what they wanted their culture to be. Is it there, perfect? I know they still want things. They have things they'd like to do better, but they had the vision. And then Flashpoint, we came in and listened to them and then created the program and adapted it along the way, so that melding those two secret sauces, if you want to talk about secret sauce, is that we had those brains going and really working very closely together to make this amazing culture happen.
How can people get a hold of you both? How does someone find you? They wanted to talk about it. Amy or Linda, they're curious. They're actually a company, maybe a couple thousand. How do they do that?
I'm relatively easy to find. If you just go to our website, milestonelp.com, and then look under our leaders. So my picture's there with the contact information.
Great.
And we'll send a link. I've got a link for you, Matt, that you can post, I suppose,
Great.
At Flashpoint, but Flashpoint Leadership Consulting. We've done a lot of work with internal coaching programs as well as just coaching in general. So, I'm happy, and my link will be there as well, so you can contact me directly with questions as well. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah. They can find you also both on LinkedIn as well.
Yep.
Some of our listeners.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave, any thoughts as we close it out?
Just a shout out to our sponsor, Character Matters Coaching. Provides leadership coaching and consulting to empower you to overcome obstacles and reach your full potential. So visit charactermatterscoaching.com to learn more about their transformative coaching and how to get connected to Matt for your organization.
Great.
And thank you both.
Until next time. Yeah.
Love being here. Until next time.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast, please share it with another coach or leader. Make sure you go to the show notes to get all of the resources from today's episode.